What is happening, Chiefs Kingdom? I am going to tell you why I am optimistic and somewhat confident that the Chiefs are going to beat the Baltimore Ravens this weekend at Arrowhead, and it has a lot to do with issues the Ravens have with personnel on the team. But before that, I want to talk about last week's matchup versus the Giants. So last week you might have heard me go on and on about the Chiefs needing to do the simple things just to win the football game. It doesn't have to be pretty. You don't have to throw the ball downfield 20 times in the game. You need to do the little things right, make sound decisions, and what do you know? The Chiefs come out, their leadership comes out, they decide to kick the field goal, take the points when they get the chance to get them. They don't pressure themselves. They don't force themselves into stupid mistakes. They actually punted on 4th and 1 from around the 50-yard line, which in a defensive football game, 100% agree with that decision. Your defense was playing well. You didn't want to give the Giants any momentum that they may not have otherwise gotten by having to march the whole length of the field. So they did a complete U-turn from the Eagles game where they were playing desperate, acting like they had to get, every first down to win the game, get a touchdown every drive to win the game, when the reality was sitting right in front of them that they were in a defensive football game. So good job to the Chiefs staff doing what they needed to do to win the game and not making things too complicated. They didn't have to make it complicated last week versus the Giants. This week versus the Ravens, I think I want to see the team be a little more aggressive. And the reason for that is because the Ravens right now defensively are not a good football team. Both teams coming into Arrowhead with a 1-2 record, and you have to ask yourself, which team do you think is more likely to start the season 1-3? The Chiefs, who are missing Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice, their top 2 receiving targets, or the Ravens, who are missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 players from the defense who are core key contributors for that group. So going into this game, you would think Kansas City, if both teams were at full power, would win. They're not both at full power. The Chiefs are weak at wide receiver, and the Ravens defense is decimated by injuries. This is why I am very high on the Chiefs in this game, and I think they're going to come out of Arrowhead with a victory. But they do need to be a little more aggressive with their strategy because the Ravens are going to be aggressive, super aggressive, because they can't trust their defense right now. So if it turns into a shootout, then I want Andy Reid and the rest of the offensive decision makers to be aggressive. If it somehow stays a defensive game and the chances that the Ravens take fall into the Chiefs' hands and they mess up in key opportunities, then I think the Chiefs are going to walk away with an easy victory. So why has Baltimore's defense been so bad? They gave up 41 points versus Buffalo in that incredible Week 1 matchup in Buffalo. They gave up 17 points to a Cleveland offense that is not very strong. And then they gave up 38 points to Detroit. So we got a little bit of good and bad here, but they did give up the most points that Cleveland has scored all year long in their 3 games. And they also gave up 41 to Buffalo, 38 to Detroit. Buffalo and Detroit, 2 of the best offenses in the NFL. Sure, fine. Maybe this has something to do with the fact that the Ravens have played some really good offensive football teams. But they're 30th in rushing yards allowed, 31st in passing yards allowed. And you would think that since they played Cleveland in between there, maybe they would be a little better than that. But when you really look at the personnel for the Ravens, you can see reasons and cracks in the foundation for why this is happening. First of all, they lost Michael Pierce, who was a long-time piece of their defensive line, who is known as a run stuffer, no longer with the team. And then they've dealt with a number of injuries. So Travis Jones, Nnamdi Madubuike, if I could say his name, Broderick Washington, all injured on their defensive line. And these 3 players did not participate in practice. I know for certain that Nnamdi Madubuike is not going to play because he has a serious neck injury. I would be surprised if he played versus Kansas City. In fact, I think he's going to be out for a while from what I was reading. At outside linebacker, they're missing Kyle Van Noor. And then cornerback, in May during the offseason, their cornerback Ardarius Washington ruptured his Achilles. He's going to be out for some time. And then Jair Alexander, who was signed in the offseason, dealt with some knee issues during the offseason, during the preseason, and who knows if he's still working through some of those issues with his knee. So this could be a high-scoring game if the Ravens are able to move the ball on offense. Strategically, I think this game comes down to the fact that the Chiefs have to play good run defense versus the Ravens, let their secondary go to work, and I like this matchup for the Chiefs. And I like this matchup specifically because of the way Spagnuolo constructs his defenses. Now, we all may moan and groan about Spagnuolo's refusal to get a lighter, quicker defensive end that might be able to do more of a speed rush. And yeah, sure, that's sexy and great. The Nick Bonitos of the NFL, have that in their repertoire. But Spags prefers defensive players who have more strength, can set the edge, can be gap disciplined. And that's why if you watch the Chiefs' run defense, you really start to get an appreciation for how good this unit is at being disciplined with their gaps. That is going to be super important in stopping Derrick Henry. So you got to stop Derrick Henry by tackling him low, taking away his gaps. You cannot let him get a full head of steam. If you let him get a full head of steam, he's going to run away. And he's going to tear you up. So the objective number one for the Chiefs defensively, mind your gaps. Don't let Lamar Jackson squeak through. Don't let Derrick Henry squeak through. Don't let either of those players get up to full speed, get in the open field, because they're going to cause problems. Now let's get a word from our sponsor, ProfitX.
ProfitX, America's #1 sports prediction market, is a peer-to-peer sports prediction market where users play against each other instead of a sports book versus the house. You will almost always get the best price on any spread, money line, total, or player prop since you're playing against other people rather than the book. ProfitX offers sweepstakes-based dual currency system, either Profit Points or Profit Cash, and operates across 40 states. Use the promo code RGR and claim up to $200 in Profit Cash on all plays for the first 30 days playing on the site. ProfitX gives you the best lines in the space, and you can even set your own odds on specific wagers on your players, all at ProfitX. Go there and use the code RGR. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back. So that's objective number one for the Chiefs. Defensively, mind your gaps, play sound football, and the Chiefs will be able to slow down this Ravens rushing attack and offense if they're able to make the Ravens one-dimensional, take away their biggest strength, which is running the football. On the offensive side of the ball, once again, the Chiefs are dealing with a decimated Baltimore defense. They only have 3 total sacks this year, with 2 of those coming from Madubuike, who's going to be out. If you think the Chiefs have had a terrible time or difficult time rushing the passer in 2025 so far, the Chiefs have double the amount of sacks that the Ravens currently have. So the Chiefs are rushing the passer much better than the Ravens have been. Granted, Spagnuolo's been having to dial up some crazy blitzes to get there, but nonetheless, they are getting there. So the Chiefs' offensive game plan, with all these injuries along the defensive line, they have that strong interior offensive line. How about we just line up, I formation, and even though you don't see Mahomes get behind center very often, but rush behind the strength of your offensive line, rush behind Trey Smith and Creed Humphrey. Kingsley Suamataia has been getting some good push and has been improving. I think you can run behind him too. So use the interior of your offensive line as a weapon against the weakened defensive line for the Ravens. That should be the strategy for the Chiefs going into this game. Let's give the run game a little more attention this week. Let's give Brashard Smith some more looks off tackle, and then let's use Pacheco and Kareem Hunt up the middle. I think if you have that strategy, you try to run the ball a lot versus defense, you can get some pretty good chunk plays. We're really not seeing a good year from Pacheco or Hunt in terms of 10-yard rushes, but this is the kind of group where you can get 4 yards in a cloud of dust maybe on every single play. It's there for you to take. So establish the run, get the Ravens to start to sell out versus the run, and then when you're passing the ball, your approach should be pretty simple. You want to avoid Marlon Humphrey, and then keep an eye out on Jair Alexander. Maybe avoid him a little bit, but work around with your other weapons. Hollywood Brown should have a good game. And then Tyquan Thornton, what about him? I kind of writ him off at the beginning of the year, and I'm not on the Tyquan Thornton hype train like everyone else is currently, but I think this could be a player similar to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but a little better, because I think Tyquan Thornton has a little better hands. So this is a situation where the Chiefs may be taking something bad that happened to them by losing Rashee Rice, injury to Xavier Worthy, and turning it into a good thing. That way, when they come down the stretch, they have a Tyquan Thornton who is contributing to this team and is an actual threat that defenses have to account for. And that's one more body that opposing defensive coordinators have to worry about. I have the Chiefs winning this football game 27-20. I think their defense is going to bow their necks and have a good outing, and they're going to mind their gaps well. And the Ravens are going to have a hard time moving the ball on the ground. They're going to have to throw it in the air. And the only way I see the Ravens winning this game is if Lamar Jackson just has an all-time game for him and he just goes crazy. I don't see that happening in Kansas City. I think looking at these two rosters, Baltimore is the much more likely team to start the year 1-3. I don't think Kansas City is going to go there. And this is not the same Ravens defense that we grew up watching. They're really having a hard time. They're dealing with a bad injury bug. So here's to a good game for the Chiefs on Sunday. Let me know down in the comments what your score predictions are. But this is Gary signing out with RGR Football. Thanks for sticking around. Got nothing but love for you all. Hit that like button and subscribe if you've not done so already. Y'all take it easy. Have a good weekend.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.